Hi, my name is Chris Morsch, and I serve as the Executive Director of LoTi Connection. Welcome to this overview of the H.E.A.T framework. H.E.A.T stands for Higher Order Thinking, Engaged Learning, Authentic Connections, and Technology Use. After spending years working with teachers on their standards, lesson plans, benchmark results, it became quite clear that we needed to look at student output in terms of how a teacher's lessons were impacting students. This led us to create the H.E.A.T framework as a way of providing a common language as well as measuring the impact of digital age teaching on students' use of higher order thinking, level of engagement and ability to apply their learning, and lastly, students' use of technology. In fact, one of the key guiding principles of the KtO grant in Pennsylvania talks about this same concept. According to the fifth guiding principle, educators must be prepared to teach effectively in the schools of the 21st century and be provided with continuing professional development support that enables them to be lifelong learners. When we talk about H.E.A.T, we are really referencing the experiential curriculum in terms of what students pick up during a lesson episode, including their level of cognition, intellectual involvement, real-world connections, and the manner in which they use digital tools in the classroom. In this overview, we will be briefly exploring the H.E.A.T framework and its potential to help teachers promote inquiry-based collaborative learning in their classrooms. Let's start with higher order thinking. Higher order thinking, as you know, has several aliases, including Bloom's taxonomy, Webb's depth of knowledge, complex thinking skills, 21st century thinking skills, to name a few. Higher order thinking is based on the notion that certain types of learning require more cognitive processing than others. The higher order thinking rubric highlights Webb's depth of knowledge, but Bloom's taxonomy works equally well. As you move down the rubric, you will notice increasing levels of student cognition, or what we call cognitive complexity. Think about the topic of presidential elections in a social studies class as it relates to higher order thinking. At a level 2, recall, students are recalling the number of votes needed to win a political party's nomination. At a level 3, students are comparing the political platforms of the Republicans versus the Democrats using a Venn diagram. At the strategic thinking level, level 4, students are analyzing the voting patterns of the swing states over the last 10 presidential elections and justifying how any particular swing state will vote in the upcoming 2016 election. At the highest levels, extended thinking, students are assuming the role of campaign strategists representing either Republicans or Democrats and creating a plan to flip one of the states to their side based on information synthesized from multiple sources over an extended period of time. Engaged learning looks at the level of intellectual involvement. Engaged learning is not just about students raising their hands and sitting up straight, but it is all about how students put into practice what they have learned in the classroom, as well as their role in the learning process. Are students passively answering closed questions from their teacher, or are they actively crafting their own questions and then exploring answers or finding solutions to these questions? As you peruse the engaged learning rubric, you notice distinct levels. At the lower levels, students are just reporting back information. At the mid-level, students are solving a teacher-directed problem. Now, before we go any further, let's pause for a moment to consider what exactly represents a problem. A problem is a question raised for inquiry, consideration, or solution, an intricate, unsettled question, a source of perplexity, distress, or vexation. When we think about a problem, what we're really considering is something where there's more than one right answer. It's open-ended, multiple solutions, carries a moderate degree of authenticity, and invites the higher levels of cognitive processing based on either Bloom or Webb's depth of knowledge. So getting back to the topic of presidential elections, a problem therefore would be students assuming the role of campaign strategists and creating a plan to flip one of the states to their side based on investigating multiple sources. At the highest levels of engaged learning, the learning becomes more student-centered in terms of investigating and solving problems. This means that students are given options, input, decision-making pertaining to the content, process, and/or product of the learning episode. Authentic connections is all about making real-world connections. Authentic Connections, as you see, is grounded in 21st century themes. Elevating the level of authentic connections enables students to put into practice what they have learned within a real-world context. As we peruse the Authentic Connections rubric, we make a careful distinction among levels 3, 4, and 5. Using the context of the presidential elections, a level 3 would be where the teacher is talking about current events pertaining to the upcoming election. At a level 4, students are investigating the voting patterns of the swing states over the last 10 presidential elections. At level 5, students are applying their learning to a real-world situation as they assume the role of campaign strategists and create a plan to flip one of the states to their side. This is applied learning because this is precisely what campaign strategists try to do. Technology use rounds out the HEAT framework. When we talk about technology use, we have softened the definition of technology use to include environmental resources. Why? Because some schools have a lack of digital resources, or within the school itself, there is an uneven distribution of digital devices in one grade level or content area versus another. An environmental resource is anything that is not technology and not a textbook. The use of manipulatives in a math class, original photos used in a social studies class, bringing in a guest speaker in a health classroom, or even the science equipment used in a biology lab are all examples of environmental resources. As we peruse the technology use rubric, you will notice the role assumed by the teacher changes as you move to higher levels. Getting back to our topic of presidential elections, at a level 3, the teacher may be displaying an online graphic organizer that shows key events leading to a political party's nominating convention. At a level 4, students may be interacting with the website 270 to Win to analyze the voting patterns of the swing states. At a level 5, students may be conducting their own information queries or self-selecting different websites that lead them to reaching a decision regarding the upcoming election. The HEAT framework, as representing student output, helps us determine the impact of our lesson planning and delivery on student success in the classroom. The HEAT framework as student output provides all of us with a simple lens in which to analyze and assess what students are doing as it pertains to their higher order thinking, engaged learning, authentic connections, and technology use levels in the classroom. Using this simple framework can yield powerful results relating to 21st century learning and really help us organize our instruction in a manner that will better prepare students for the challenges facing them in a global society.